As we get ready to wear our wonderful Purim costumes this weekend, we have to take a step back and ask ourselves, what's the connection that we find between the holiday of Purim and receiving of the Torah? There's an expression that we find, it's called kimu v'kiblu. We will fulfill that which was established thousands of years ago. Whatever was established thousands of years ago at Mount Sinai will now be fulfilled for time immemorial in Purim. And what the question is, what is the connection? Here you've got Purim, Haman, Achashverosh, Jewish annihilation, then you've got the receiving of the Torah. How can we bridge these two ideas? What's the connecting point between the story of Purim and the story of the receiving of the Torah? Why exactly is it kimu v'kiblu? We'll do now what we received then. How do we bridge the gap? The reality is, let's turn back time to the Mishkan, that which we're looking at now. And Moses said, okay, how am I going to do it? How am I going to build a building which is going to bring God's presence to the world? And on some level, God said, the same thing that happened on Mount Sinai, you're just making a little replica. You're building a little space for me. Just give me a little space to occupy, to reside in. Now, how did it happen at Mount Sinai? How in the world did the Jewish people end up getting God's presence to come all the way down to the mountain? What's interesting is that we find at Matan Torah, it says that the key ingredient, it says if we would have gotten to Mount Sinai, would not have received the Torah, it would have been sufficient. Sufficient for what? The answer is we achieved togetherness. That was the one point in Jewish history where the Jewish people were absolutely together. We were unified in our expression. We were unified in our togetherness. Even if we were in close quarters, we didn't even complain. That togetherness, what we call achdus, was the key ingredient to the receiving of the Torah. Now we're going to go all the way to the Purim story. Thousands of years later, what do we find? We find that again, the Jewish people said, kimu v'kiblu, let's receive now with a renewed energy that which we had before. Well, how's it going to happen? It can only happen if we have that key ingredient. The key ingredient being, we've got to be together. That's why there are two fundamental mitzvahs that we have to the day of Purim. In addition to hearing the Megillah, dressing up, having a festive meal, there are two special mitzvahs that we do to bring this togetherness. Number one, there's something called mishalach manos. We send gifts to each other. You got to take one or two food items, actually two items. Take two food, give an apple or an orange, give an apple and a banana, an apple and a chocolate. You figure it out. Get two food items that would enhance someone else's meal and send it to them or give it to them. What does that show? That shows brotherhood. That shows togetherness. And what's the other thing? Well, not everyone's going to be living in the same strata that we're living in. Not everyone's living in Forest Hill. Not everyone's living well. Not everyone is making ends meet. There are certain poor people that cannot afford the meal. So what we do is we dig into our pockets, we take out money, and we make sure on Purim Day that we distribute money to poor Jewish brothers and sisters so they too can enjoy their Purim meal. Now, the fact of the matter is, if they take that money and save it for Passover, if they take that money and they use it for the rent, that's their business. But what we're doing is we're showing we are all one family. So now we take a step back, and what do we appreciate? We appreciate that the key ingredient of the receiving of the Torah was not just an acceptance of God in our lives. It was an acceptance of each other. It was an embrace. And that acceptance is what we duplicate on Purim Day by giving out money to those who are in need so they too can enjoy a meal. As well, we supply our friends with food items so their meal will also be enhanced. And in doing so, we again are duplicating that key ingredient of getting the Torah, that key ingredient of togetherness. It would have been worth it to get all the way to Mount Sinai, even if we wouldn't have received the Torah, just to have the unity amongst the Jewish people. Wishing all of you a good Shabbos and a wonderful Purim.